Well, I've asked a special person to us. You all remember when Donna Fortin was running for district judge, and she got a lot of support here, and she's very accessible. She's always returned my phone calls or answered the phone. I don't know if you were on the bench or not at the time. I hope not. But we've asked Donna to come here to introduce our special guest, and I'll let her do that.
I am very proud and honored to be here to introduce to you Justice John Paul Newby. Justice Newby was born in Asheboro on May the 5th, 1955, to Sam and Ruth Parks Newby. His father was a printer who earned an hourly wage, and his mother a school teacher. He was raised in Jamestown, where he graduated from Ragsdale High School. He received his Bachelor of Arts degree in Public Policy Studies, magna cum laude, from Duke. And he received his law degree from UNC Chapel Hill School of Law. Justice Newby served as a judicial intern in the U.S. Supreme Court and interned for the 18th Judicial District Public Defender's Office at Greensboro and High Point. He began his law practice in Asheville with the Van Winkle law firm. He was the Vice President and General Counsel of Cannon Mills Realty and Development Corporation in Kannapolis. In 1985, Justice Newby was appointed as an Assistant U.S. Attorney in Raleigh, where he served for over 19 years. He taught many courses for the United States Department of Justice and received the Crime Victims Fund Award. Since beginning his service on the Supreme Court in 2004, Justice Newby has participated as a member of the North Carolina Courts Commission. He's been an instructor for the North Carolina Judicial College and various continuing legal education courses. Justice Newby is an adjunct professor at Campbell University School of Law, and in recognition of his professional service, Justice Newby has received the James Iredell Award and an honorary doctorate of laws from Southern Wesleyan University. Justice Newby is active in the North Carolina Bar Association, having served as vice president there. He's also been selected as a delegate for the Bar Association's Attorney Exchange Program with Turkey. Being a strong proponent of civic education, Justice Newby makes frequent presentations to school groups and civic organizations. Justice Newby is an Eagle Scout and serves as the Scoutmaster Emeritus of Troop 11 and as a board member of the Occoneechee Council. He is the recipient of the Heroism Award for rescuing 9 people from a riptide and of the God in Service Award. In 2010, Justice Newby was named Scouter of the Year for his coordination of Scouting's statewide report to the state, recognizing the 100th anniversary of the Boy Scouts in America. Justice Newby has been married to Macon Tucker Newby since 1983. They have 4 children, Samuel, Ruth, Peter, and Sarah. He and his family attend Christ Baptist Church in Raleigh, where he is an elder, a Sunday school teacher, and a youth leader. Please join me in welcoming Justice Newby.
Whenever folks give you that kind of a warm welcome, I'm reminded of I argued a case one time up at the 4th Circuit Court of Appeals up in Richmond, and I had worked very hard to prepare for this hearing, this oral argument. I'd probably spent at least 12 hours going over the material. I was ready for whatever the questions the judges might ask. I went second. I was defending the appeal, and the person who brought the appeal, the attorney, got a pretty hard time from the bench, and so I was ready. I was going to answer all the questions, and I stood up to argue, and the chief judge looked at me and said, Mr. Newby, we understand your position. You do not have anything to add, do you? I had a lot to add. I mean, I really don't. But fortunately, good sense won out, and I said, no, Your Honor, and sat down. Ultimately won the appeal, so maybe I'd be better off to say, thank y'all very much. I really just sit down. I did start my day at 3 o'clock this morning. And I can tell you that if you ever get caught like in the traffic around Raleigh and Greensboro and Winston, 3 o'clock in the morning there is none. Okay, so that's a good time to travel. And it's always great for me to get back up here in God's country, up in the mountains. I started practicing law in Asheville. I know Certainly, I actually lived in downtown Asheville. It was safe to do so at the time. No comments about today. But, I'd walk to work and I'd see the mountains there, and I would always be reminded, I lift up mine eyes to the hills, where's my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, just a great reminder of that. And I liked the mountains so much, and I searched a bunch of titles over here in this county, that I looked high and low, and I finally found a young lady who could live up to the mountain standards, because her name is Macon. Okay, M-A-C-O-N, Macon. All right, so actually she's named after Nathaniel Macon. The county's named after Nathaniel Macon, who is a great North Carolinian. As a matter of fact, he was the original Senator No. It was said of Nathaniel Macon he never met a spending bill he liked, and that it took at least 10 other people to add up the no votes to compare to Nathaniel Macon. He certainly was a citizen statesman, and I certainly believe that you're going to send another senator or House member statesman up there when you send Mark Meadows, who's another person who wants to go up there for the right reasons. Thank you, Mark. Chief Justice Roberts disappointed some of us, both in the Arizona case and in the healthcare case. And while I can certainly talk about some of those cases, I want to read the way he closed his opinion, because quite frankly, some of the things that he said there are in fact the truth. He says this. He says, under the Constitution, the judgment about the wisdom of the Affordable Health Care Act is reserved to the people. Our Constitution starts out, we the people. And again, I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, but this case boils down to the same debate that went on in 1787, 225 years ago. Right now, up in Philadelphia, they were debating this Constitution, and there were a whole bunch of folks that said, wait, it shouldn't say we the people, it should say we the states. And there was great concern that this new federal government would take over the power of the states. They were called the anti-federalists. They were concerned about the rights or the power of state government, and they were concerned about individual liberties and freedoms. North Carolina is the only state to have voted down the federal Constitution. We did it in 1788, and we did it because there was no protection of fundamental rights and freedoms. It's only in 1789 that there was a Bill of Rights. Nathaniel Macon from your county was very much a states' rights, anti-federalist person, and even though he was Speaker of the House under President Jefferson, he very much believed that local people should be making decisions, not Washington or D.C., that the more we localize government, the better it is for all of us. Who are we as a people? I think that is really the question before us now. Who are we as a people? My granddaddy was a farmer. He was a merchant. And not long ago, somebody came up to me, and this has happened multiple times over the last 8 years, and they said, you know, Paul, we knew your granddaddy when our family, my daddy got laid off from work, and he gave him money. He looked after him. He was just the kind of guy who we knew was truly a Christian gentleman. Now, my granddaddy died 42 years ago. 42 years ago. And I asked myself, wow, 42 years from now, will my family even remember me? And more or less somebody who's not in my family. And tonight we have taken time to honor Mr. Carragher in such a small way, but he's a reminder of who we are as a people. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but I want to go back even further, because he is truly in the heritage and the tradition that we as Americans should be proud of. Because as it says in America the Beautiful, more than self, their country love. These are the kinds of folks that are our heroes, and yet we lose sight of that. So I want to go back, I want to asking ourselves, who are we as a people? And I want to go back to 1776. George Washington said miraculously we had just been able to run the British out of Boston, and the British were looking for a place to land. In February of 1776, they thought they could go into Wilmington and just march across the South. And the fleet had gone down there to do that, but there were some patriots in North Carolina who formed an army, and we had a battle in southeastern North Carolina, the Battle of Moores Creek Bridge. We were successful in defeating the Loyalists, but we had our casualties. North Carolinians couldn't believe that the British and the Loyalists were killing folks simply for wanting the freedoms and liberties that we believed were God-given. So in April of 1776, we were the first state to call for independence. Oops, wrong way. That's what this date is, okay? The top date is the Mecklenburg Declaration of Independence. The bottom date is the Halifax Resolves. We were the first state to call for independence. And yet, who did we think we were? I mean, we were just a bunch of farmers and merchants. On the other side is Goliath, the biggest navy, the biggest army. How could we ever think about winning a war against those folks? Well, we had a heritage of Christian faith, and we believed that if it was God who in fact was calling us to do that, that we could prevail. And let me read to you the resolution from Congress passed in March of 1776, that I think laid the foundation for July the 4th, 1776. It says, Congress, desiring to have people of all ranks and degrees duly impressed with a solemn sense of God's superintending providence and of their duty devoutly to rely on God's aid and direction, do earnestly recommend Friday the 17th day of May, 1776, be observed by the colonies as a day of humiliation, fasting, and prayer, that we may with united hearts confess and bewail our manifold sins and transgressions, and by sincere repentance and amendment of life, appease God's righteous displeasure, and through the merits and mediation of Jesus Christ, obtain this pardon and forgiveness. What a great resolution from Congress, calling upon us to ask for God's blessings on our nation. This is the foundations that were laid for us. And even though certainly many people fought and died to earn us those freedoms and liberties, by God's grace, we were established, and we are the longest lasting republic in the history of the world. So you ask yourself, Justice Ginsburg, when you were asked, what is the greatest constitution, or what would you use as an example to other countries as a constitution? Justice Ginsburg, one of 9 U.S. Supreme Court justices, how dare you tell people to use South Africa's constitution as the example? Really, Justice Ginsburg? When people are persecuted for religious or for political reasons, do they flee to South Africa, that haven of liberty and justice? When a person is charged with a crime, what justice system would they want to be prosecuted in? It's not South Africa, Justice Ginsburg. It's here. It's the United States of America. And Justice Ginsburg, with all due respect, ma'am, if you would pull this out and read it sometime, maybe you would have a greater appreciation for who we are, and by God's grace, who we should continue to be. And are you a little bit tired of people apologizing for who we are as a nation? You know, when I hear of Mr. Carringer and the sacrifices that he made, I am reminded that we didn't gain any geographical territory despite the great loss of life in World War II. When I look around the conflicts that we have engaged in, it's not for economic gain. It's not for other personal reasons or geographic gain. It's because we believe this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all are created equal and endowed not by the government or a constitution or a Bill of Rights, but endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the preamble to our state constitution emphasizes it even more. It says this, written in 1868 by Unionists and by freed slaves right there in Raleigh. 1868 is the preamble that we have today in our state constitution. It says this, "We, the people of the state of North Carolina, grateful to Almighty God, the sovereign ruler of nations, for the preservation of the American Union and the existence of our civil, political, and religious liberties, and acknowledging our dependence upon Him, upon God, for the continuation of those blessings to us and to our posterity." What a great heritage we have. But the question is, what will we do with it? President Lincoln observed as he overlooked the battlefield at Gettysburg that our forefathers had brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all are created equal, and that at that time they were engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. I think so many of the pressures we see on our country today have to do with fundamentally, who are we? Who are we as a people? And I believe that the heritage that we have is being undermined. And I'm so grateful for the Mark Meadows and the Dan Forrest and certainly the representatives that you have, Representative Roger West, Senator Jim Davis. These are folks that go to Raleigh for all the right reasons. They're not there for self-gain. They're not there to, let me mention Senator Carpenter too. I first got to know him and Helen Carpenter, and such great Americans, great patriots, again, for all the right reasons, are wanting to be involved in this process, not because it's easy or it's fun or it's anything for self, but because it's a sense of calling that they want to make this country better for their children and their grandchildren. And they want it to live up to who we are as a people. Let me tell you just a minute about judicial races. Nobody knows who the judges are. There are 7 of us on the state Supreme Court. I often go around and speak to civic groups. In 1865, a Union soldier stole North Carolina's original copy of the Bill of Rights, and in 2003, I did the sting that got it back. You can just think National Treasure 3. Okay, that's what we did. And so I go to civic groups, and the most frequently asked question I get is, "Oh, you're a justice on the Supreme Court. Never met one before. Can you help me with my speeding ticket?" Ladies and gentlemen, there are people here tonight that have been announced that maybe could help you with a speeding ticket. I'm not one of them, okay? If you have a speeding ticket at North Carolina Supreme Court, fire your lawyer. This is not going to turn out good for you. So it's very difficult as we go statewide for folks to know who any of the judges or justices are. So I want to take just a minute and tell you a little bit about myself, and then a little bit about the political race or the judicial race that I'm looking at. As was said, I grew up in a small town in North Carolina. Actually, in the 6th grade, this family moved to North Carolina. A nice family. The young man's name was Pat McCrory. We went to elementary school and junior high and high school together. So it's been interesting to reconnect here recently and to see. I'm so proud of Pat. I got to tell you, I've known him since he was in the 5th grade. I was in 6th grade, and what you see is what you get. He is an honest, straightforward guy, and quite frankly, he will make a great governor. Growing up in a small town, first lawyer I ever met was a merit badge counselor. I'm an Eagle Scout, and just going through that process, never thought I'd have an opportunity to serve on the state Supreme Court. In 2004, Justice Bob Orr resigned, and I was fortunate enough to win. And so I'm finishing up an 8-year term. Under the state constitution, we all get 8-year terms. And so now I'm out running again. Ms. Carpenter will well remember, she and her husband were very helpful to me in the 2004 process. And even she, I bet I even got her to say, "Scooby-Dooby, vote for Newby." I mean, it was one of those things. I mean, I tell everybody, Newbies have been in North Carolina since 1700. We just never did anything. And, it just makes it difficult. Folks just don't know who we are, and that's where I need your help. In 2008, Bob Edmonds was the conservative candidate. John McCain I looked at his votes, and I looked at the votes for Western North Carolina. There were 45,000 people in Western North Carolina who voted for John McCain, who had no idea who the conservative judge was and did not vote for Bob Edwards. In Macon County, it was 4,000 people dropped off after having voted for John McCain, not knowing who the conservative judge was, and just not voting. And the same is true throughout Western North Carolina. We just need your help in getting the word out who we are. It is challenging under any circumstances, but particularly this year, we have approached the TV stations about whether or not they will go ahead and sell us some TV time. And their response to us has been, well, we don't know how much time the president's going to buy, and so we don't know what the price is going to be yet, because depending on how much he buys is going to drive the price up, so we can't sell it to you until we know what the price is going to be. So I need your help in spreading the word, because folks just don't know who we are, and quite frankly, most folks want some information about judges. If you try to talk to them about some of the more political races, it's like, well, I'll make my own decision, but when it comes to judge, they want that information. So if you can help us, I would greatly appreciate it. Well, what can we do to help, Paul? I'm glad you asked. I've got bumper stickers. Each one of these is worth 100 votes. Unless you put it on a pickup, then it's worth 500 votes. So these are outside. You can pick one up. I have these little cards about who I am and my experience. So, if folks will just stop and think about the race, look at my resume compared to my opponent, I will be okay. But if it's just a name game, it's very, very difficult. 1/3 of the people statewide don't vote for judges. Of the 2/3 who do vote, some do some homework, the other play a name game. My good friend and colleague on the court's name is Mark Martin. You're not supposed to envy, but I envy his name. I mean, the day he was born, his mama wrapped up all the NASCAR votes. For those of you that don't know, Mark Martin is very famous for race car driver. You can just see Bubba going, well, I've been in line, I'm going to vote for this judicial race. Maybe I'll recognize the name. Good gracious, there's Mark Martin. He's a race car driver and a judge. I know, particularly having gone through the primary season, everybody's been bombarded with emails. Not from me. I promised I wasn't going to send out any during that period of time. I'll send out only 3 emails, but it's the type of thing, if I can send you an email and you can send it to 25 or 50 of your friends and family members, that will help greatly. I will have a sign-up sheet for emails out here. And just to prove once and for all that I am, in fact, a conservative, straight from my barn after 8 years of storage in my barn, I've got big signs. And these are 2 feet by 4 feet, and I'm going to have these at the headquarters. And if any of y'all have like some good road frontage, that would be very helpful. Sure would appreciate any help with that. For those of you that don't want to be so bold with conservatives, you'll notice on the way in we have the re-elect signs. And one of the reasons I did that is I've been very fortunate to have a lot of bipartisan support across the state. I won't name them all, but 4 former Chief Justices, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans supporting, endorsing me. And you say, well, wonder why that is. It's because I just follow the law. I promised when I ran in 2004 that I was not going to be an activist, that I believe in judicial self-restraint. I believe in separation of powers. I believe that judges are there simply to fairly apply the law. We are not there to make law. And for the last 8 years, I hadn't done that, and so I've got bipartisan support because I'm, as a reporter told me the other day, I explained my judicial philosophy, and they said, well, you're just boring, aren't you? I said, yeah, but because I said, we need to be predictable, we need to be consistent, and the law has a common sense element to it, and we need to not throw common sense out, we need to apply it. And that's what I've done for 8 years, so I've got a lot of really good bipartisan support. So anything you folks can do to help me, I sure would appreciate it. I need all the help up here that I can get. And again, even if folks are registered different ways, I do believe a large majority of North Carolinians want judges who will not be activists, but will simply, fairly, impartially apply the law, but not legislate from the bench. That's my record for the last 8 years, and that's what I will continue to do. As we think about the upcoming election, Dan Forrest has gone around telling folks that this is our 1776. Here it is again. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. President Lincoln observed at the battlefield there, he said, folks, don't let these who have fallen here die in vain. He said, we need to recommit ourselves to the principles for which they died. He said that this nation under God may have a new birth of freedom, and that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people will not perish from the face of the earth. That's certainly my prayer for our nation as well. Thank you for allowing me to be up here with you.
Justice Newby, we wanted you to bring back to Raleigh something besides the memory of 80 Republicans chewing their food. So with that in mind, and your appreciation for history, as I can tell you have, on behalf of the Macon County Republican Party and the Gem Country Republican Women's Club, we'd like to have you take this back. It's a heritage of Macon County from our Historical Society, and I hope you don't have it already.
I do not. That is great. My wife will love this. I mean, she's going to cover up the county and say Heritage of Macon. So